just in general, the restrooms are over here. There's some coffee and tea in the back, decaf regular and regular tea. Some goodies and all if you wanted to partake before we started. There's waving's going on. I thought somebody was calling me or something. I'm sorry. Well, I'm not going to waste my time here talking. If I could get Rich up here, Rich Schuker. He spoke at our last one, House Bill 76, House Bill, Senate Bill 76, and he's going to give us like an update on his latest.
I want to thank you for having me talk again. How many of you would like 76 to pass? Well, I have some good news for you. About a month ago, I sent out an update on the foreclosures in the state of Pennsylvania. Did any of you read it? No. It's very interesting. The foreclosures in the state in the last 6 months went up 15.6%. That's an incredible number. But what's interesting about the report is previously all the legislators that stated there was no problem with foreclosures in their districts, guess what? They got and received the biggest foreclosures. The legislators that actually quoted there was no problem, the percentage of increase on the low side was 30%, which and as high as 90% increase in the foreclosures in their counties. That's bad for the people, but it's good for the movement. Senator Scarnati, he has the majority of the major increases where he said there was none. I guarantee you his office was contacted. All along we've heard that there's been problems in the bill, but I could never find out what are the problems in the bill. Why can we not get it passed? Well, I found out some of the problems, and they're being addressed by the Senate. The number one problem is this. The sales tax in the state right now is 6%. The sales tax in Allegheny County and Philadelphia County is 7%. House Bill 76, we're going to increase it by 1%. The bill states that the 1% that now goes to Allegheny and Philadelphia County now goes to Harrisburg. So they need to do an amendment that 1% still stays in Allegheny County and Philadelphia County. As we're gathered here today, Dave Arnold is working on fixing that problem. That will also help some of the Democrat legislators get on the side of getting this bill passed. Point number one. Point number two. They're not sure what index they want to use. They originally drafted the bill using CPI, Consumer Price Index. But that is the national number. There are some states that their increase is only 80% of CPI. Pennsylvania, we're at 120% of CPI. It's an unfair way to regulate the future increases in the taxes. So we're going to use one of two items. Gross product in the state of Pennsylvania as an index to increase the school funding down the road, or income. If they use the gross product in Pennsylvania, that actually increases the funding to the schools, which is fine. Because the old saying that the math doesn't work is totally wrong. I was on the phone with Senator Brubaker's office this past week for almost an hour. And we've discussed this. The Senate knows that there's going to be approximately a $2 billion surplus. The math does work. It has always worked. The IFO report is incorrect, and they hid some of the revenue that would have been coming in from it. That leads us to a problem. We really don't want that much of a surplus. So there's an amendment being drafted that whatever the school funding is now, they will get, plus an increase based on the index. The excess money will not go to the general fund and will not be sent out to the schools. It's going to be held in a separate account under the educational fund. The purpose of this is for emergencies and to have the money there. In the bill, the districts have to take the debt that they have and put it in a payoff period. So the debt goes away. With these reserve funds, if emergencies come up, the school districts could go to the legislators, get the money and fix the problem, hypothetically a roof falls in or something. But we also know that the school districts have made $1 million in reserve right now. So we shouldn't need that. The other thing is, if they use the gross product, in the last 10 years, 2 of the years were negative. And of course, we have people complaining about that because the school districts won't get the benefits. Well, if we have the money in the reserve account, we can offset that and still eliminate it. And this was set up this way to help some of the Democrats get on board to continue with and get this bill passed. Brubaker wants this bill passed. And he's the head of the Finance Committee in the Senate. What he has actually done is going to the Democrat caucus and said, what is your problem with 76? I want it written out. He went to the Republican caucus and said the same thing. What is your problem? He took everything that was written by the Democrats, gave it to the Republicans, and everything written by the Republicans and gave it to the Democrats, and told them, work it out. I want this bill voted on as soon as we can get it. We need to fix the major problems, but I want to vote on it, and I want to vote on it as soon as possible. That's a good sign. That's a lot different than what we've been getting by the House. There's 2 reasons he wants to do this. Number one, he's not running next year. He's getting out of office. He wants this passed before he's out. Last note, I've been working with some of the Finance Committee members in the House, and some of the people that have been against it are now saying this is starting to make sense. So once it goes from the Senate to the House, I believe we've got a very good chance of getting it through. That's my update for you. It looks very positive. Okay? I will answer any questions afterwards if you have.
Thank you very much, Rich. That was handy information to have. And now I'll introduce Simon Campbell for the rest. Don't forget to ask questions.
All right, well, thank you, John, and thank you, everyone, for inviting me. It's nice to be here. I appreciate the warm welcome. You can clap too, Diane. This is my friend. She travelled all the way from Harrisburg today. You want me to do that? I don't mind. Do you want me to hook this up? I guess. What do you guys prefer? Anything? Yeah, we can do that. All right. How about you? Take care of this. You. This one. Go. Modern technology. I'll look up Brooklyn Road. No, not that. Actually, I have one of these in my videos, I think, so. Yeah. Actually, you should do one. Yeah, just to put the wire. Every word. Sure, you want it? You know, I'll stick it in your pocket or hold it or whatever. Are you guys filming me with a wire hanging all over the place? The room is about there already, Miles. Please. All right. How about I put that on my head?
Nice.
No? Okay, good. Forget the wire. Okay, I look like a space alien. Let me start again. Simon Campbell from Bucks County. I am the president of Pennsylvanians for Union Reform. You can see on the page that I'm blocking here, let me just show you. That is our Facebook page, and certainly when you go home tonight, I would encourage you to sign on. Even if you're not a Facebook member, you can look at it like the website. You go to facebook.com/PA Union Reform. And the reason we're getting involved with social media is because, quite frankly, it's the future. It's the way that people communicate. It's the way that ideas exchange. State legislators are all over it. And it is a great way to get a message out. So I know that, even including myself, I've been resistant to this whole thing. But it is the way of the future. And if you want to influence legislation, I think it's hard to avoid social media. So, facebook.com/PA Union Reform. Where should I start? Pennsylvanians for Union Reform is a grassroots advocacy organization. And maybe I'll just start at the very beginning of how I got to get involved with this. A number of years ago, in 2005, my family and I had moved from Switzerland to settle in the US. You can tell I'm originally from the UK. Although I like to say I'm from Louisiana, just to confuse people with my accent. And there was a teacher strike in our local school district about a year after we moved in, and I had no idea teachers were allowed to strike. They threw the kids out for an entire month. This is down in Bucks County, and I got really fed up with it. To the point where I started a website back at the time called Stop Teacher Strikes, sign up now. It was like $5 a month. And, just basically saying this is ridiculous. How can you have kids thrown out of school? We just come from Switzerland where they don't have teacher strikes. They're too busy to, teaching their kids to speak 3 languages fluently, ready to compete in a global economy. So the idea of, you can have a private organization just throw them out and shut the schools down for a month would seem kind of bizarre in many other places. So I looked at it from this sort of international perspective, if you will. It just seemed absurd. And I said, we've got to ban teacher strikes because 37 other states don't allow teachers to strike, right? So why do we allow them in Pennsylvania? They're illegal in New Jersey, illegal in New York. These are big union states. Well, why not Pennsylvania? And the short answer to that question, which ties into just about anything you want to get done in Harrisburg, is the massive corrupting political power of government unions. And the biggest and baddest of them all is, you can say it, the teachers union. Yes, they are by far the most powerful union in the United States. They're the most powerful union in Pennsylvania. So that's how I got involved with this issue of public sector unions, was through the teacher strike issue. And there was legislation pending in Harrisburg to this day. Representative Will Tolman has the bill that would eliminate teacher strikes in Pennsylvania and guarantee our school children a strike-free education. So I would encourage you to get involved with the website page, to get involved with this bill, because our school children deserve the legal right to go to school. And that means an uninterrupted education. We don't pay taxes, so private organizations can shut down public learning facilities, because that's what the schools are. They belong to the public. They're ours. We pay for them, and we pay taxes, incredible taxes, as we know from House Bill, Senate Bill 76, so that our kids can be educated. We don't pay these taxes, so private organizations can say, we're shutting down the public's facilities for whatever time period we want, because we want more money from the public. I mean, I consider teacher strikes, quite frankly, a form of legalized extortion. Because on the one side of the negotiating table, you have elected officials, and quite frankly, half of them on the school boards, they're all better than the teachers union. But even when you find ones that are willing to stand up and negotiate fairly with taxpayers, they get threatened. They basically get told, if you don't give us what we want, we'll go on strike, we'll shut the schools, we'll have all the parents screaming at you until you give us it that way. And I don't think we should ever allow a private organization that kind of bullying power over the public. And it's not just teacher strikes. Pennsylvania Union Reform, we don't believe that anybody in the public sector should have the right to go on strike, because a strike in the public sector is a strike against the public interest, whether we're talking teachers, county workers, municipal workers, it doesn't matter. And this was put into perspective for me personally. A few years ago, I was testifying before the state Senate on teacher strikes.
And a lady called me before I went to testify. She said, you know, Mr. Campbell, my husband's a public employee. He has no right to strike, and he's never had a right to strike. He considers himself a public servant. Every night in Afghanistan, he sleeps next to a gun. Now, when you consider that we have men and women who are such believers in public service that they're literally willing to risk their lives in the name of public service, and they cannot walk off the job, what is wrong with saying that we can't hold our school teachers accountable to our kids? What's wrong with it is the teachers' union. So that's how I got started on this whole issue. But when you think about public sector unions and why we need to reform so many things, how many of you are familiar with the Right to Work initiative? Can I see show of hands? Good, most of you. That is central to our platform. We think there is nothing that would benefit Pennsylvania more than the passage of a Right to Work law. And the reasons for that are, we live in the Northeast. I mean, right to work has been proven to be an economic boom everywhere around the country. Businesses will always want to choose to go to a state where the right to work law, where they're basically not going to get thugged up by unions. I mean, let's just say it like it is. And so, you know, here we are in the Northeast with a great geographic location. We're surrounded by compulsory union states, New Jersey, New York, Ohio. And I'd often wondered, you know, if Pennsylvania has the right to work law in the Northeast of the United States, what a spectacular bonanza that would be economically for this state. And guess how much money it would cost to pass a right to work law? Guess how much analysis you need to do in the finance community? Nothing. You could pass a right to work law like that in 2 seconds. It wouldn't cost the taxpayers a nickel. And it would unleash the free enterprise system in Pennsylvania. But for me personally, you know, right to work, aside from the economic benefits which have been proven, a lot of the left, if you will, the unions like to get into this back and forth around the numbers. You know, they're left-wing think tanks, and on this side of the equation we have our think tanks, and sometimes they get into these battles about numbers and cost of living and whether one state's better than another. But more important than the economic benefit is the fact that it is a basic principle of individual liberty and freedom of choice for the individual employee. I don't understand, when I say this as an immigrant, a foreigner, you know, I'm a citizen these days, but coming from abroad, how anybody in the United States can believe that it is okay to tell an objecting individual, we don't care what you think, we're going to force you to pay union dues if you want to get a job working for this employer. That's just un-American. That's just not right. You know, someone wants to join and pay dues to a union. How about it? I mean, it's not something I would do, but it's a free country. But in a free country, everybody should have the equal right to refrain from doing so. And the fact of the matter is, we have compulsory union school districts, compulsory union counties, compulsory union state government. And not many people realize about the Right to Work initiative is the fact that even though there are compulsory unions in state, that item, forced union dues, is still negotiable locally between government agencies and unions. In other words, you don't have to have compulsory dues in a school district. It's negotiated between the school board and the union. You don't have to have it at the county. The commissioners don't have to agree to it between themselves and the union. The state government, Harrisburg, Tom Corbett, the executive branch, when they negotiate for all the state workers' unions with AFSCME and SEIU, same thing. Current law says that they don't have to agree to this provision. So until we become a right to work state, where the law is blanket, you know, passed across the entire state, it is incumbent upon local, county, and state officials, in our view, to seek to negotiate this provision out so that you would have, in effect, a right to work school district, or a right to work county, or a right to work, you know, executive office. And what aggravates me more than anything, and I say, and I'm very politically incorrect, by the way, I have to warn you on this, is the fact that we have a governor of Pennsylvania who has said kind of passively, well, I would pass the right to work law bill if it came to my desk. I mean, well, first of all, what kind of leadership is that? You know, something as huge as right to work. You don't say, well, I'll just, if you'll find me over there in the corner somewhere, and if someone else does all the heavy lifting, you know, then bring me out and I'll sign the paperwork. That's not how it works. We need a governor who is leading the charge on this, and Corbyn has been absolutely missing in action. But when he took office in 2010? Yeah, 2010. Was it 11? I forget now. But 11. 6 months later, anyway, he was in contract negotiations with all the state workers' unions, AFSCME and SEIU and the others. And he agreed in those contract negotiations to remove the compulsory dues provision in all of those contracts, when the law says he could have sought to get rid of it and negotiate it out. So here we have someone that says, I'll sign the bill right to work, but don't expect me when I'm negotiating it to even talk about it or bring it up. I'll just sign off on compulsory dues again. It's a total double standard. And this is the problem that we have in Pennsylvania compared to the likes of Wisconsin, for example, where you have a governor that's willing to fight these issues. Because if you're not willing as a governor to tackle these big public sector union issues, then nothing's going to change. I mean, did you see the move recently on the transportation bill? You saw that? Where, $2.5 billion they want to spend. Well, guess what that's going to? Prevailing wage. I mean, prevailing wage is a ridiculous, market-distorting law that says the public has to pay, anywhere from 20 to 30% extra cost on public construction projects. Why? Why don't we just let the market rate of labor determine the price of public construction? Because of the power of the unions in Harrisburg. So here we have a situation where we need infrastructure fixed, yet because the governor basically said, well, give us the $2.5 billion and I'll do a press conference with union bosses that want all those union jobs for prevailing wage. Well, how about he sits back and says, we need to eliminate prevailing wage, and then we'll do the infrastructure project, and we'll save 20% in the process. He doesn't want to have the fight, doesn't want to have the argument. And this is the problem that we have with all of these reform measures. You talk about Senate Bill 76. You want to know what the issue is with that? Aside from the details of the bill and all that, I'll tell you exactly what the issue is. Practically every member of the Democrat caucus gets elected by the teachers' union. Right? You can have the most spectacular, perfect worded bill in the world. They can iron out every little technical difficulty, have it nailed on. And then if a Democrat goes along and says, I'd like to get through the next Democrat primary, please, guess what they have to do? They have to please the teachers' union. Is there a single Democrat legislator that will get through a Democrat primary without the campaign support of the teachers' union and the other government unions? No. So as much as we would like to say, guys in Harrisburg, do the right thing, the reality of it is, far too many of them say, well, what am I going to need to do to get myself re-elected? Who do I need to please? And it's not just the Democrats that are looking to please some of these unions. There's a whole pile of Republicans in their pocket too. And so when you think about these big issues, whether it's Senate Bill 76, whether it's teacher strikes, whether it's right to work, prevailing wage, there is simply no way of getting, in my opinion, of getting these reforms actually passed into law unless someone is really, not someone, a mass of citizens is willing to stand up and say, we have got to start dealing with the political power of these public sector unions. No messing around, say it like it is, find out who these legislators are that are taking their campaign contributions and out them publicly and tell everyone what's going on. Because there's so many deals that are being cut between politicians and unions, even if they're not endorsed by the teachers' union. I've heard expressions called non-aggression pacts, where Republicans will say, well, I won't hurt you too much and go after those things that the likes of Mr. Campbell is talking about, as long as you leave me alone in the elections. State Representative Darrell Metcalf, who's probably one of the most conservative state reps in Pennsylvania, tell me that it's actually, we videoed him on YouTube for this. In 2001, and he's on YouTube saying this, that was when they passed the pension increase. Do you remember that? For the 25% increase for all the school employees and the 50% increase for themselves. Well, Darrell Metcalf said that the teachers union went to the entire Republican caucus and basically said, if you give us this bill, this law, this bump, we promise to leave the Republican caucus alone in the elections next year. I think he said there were 4 Republicans that they exempted that was still going to target him being one of them. Darrell makes the quip that he was disappointed he he was only number 2 on their hit list, but, you know, that's down on their car for you. But the point being, I mean, I said, no, you've got to be video for this. I want to tell people about this. You've got basically the teachers union engaged in training campaign activity for a law that massively increases the burden on the taxpayers, as we're now all finding out. I mean, pension reform, what are we, $41 billion in the hole, Pennsylvania, trying to bail out the public employee retirement system for the state employees and the public school employees? Well, guess why we're that much in the hole? Because we have defined benefit pension plans, the likes of which died in the private sector in the 1980s, yet public employees, government workers still get them, and the only reason they still get them, and you can't change this, is because of the power of the government unions. So we're all staring down the barrel of significant increases in property taxes and state income taxes to fund this coming pension crisis because of the power of government unions. So we take the position at Pennsylvania for union reform that these issues are huge issues that can't be ducked and dived around. You can't hide under the table when dealing with some of these public sector unions because, you know, Chris Christie called the teachers union a political thuggery operation. And that is exactly what they are, whether we're talking about local school board elections, whether we're talking about purchasing politicians in Harrisburg. This is what this organization is all about. They're all about more public expenditure, you know, more union dues, compulsory unionism, higher taxes, and just give us more and more and more, instead of trying to actually reform anything. I mean, government unions don't want to reform anything, they just want more of the public's money, because that's how they exist. You know, and when I talk about the teachers union, I encourage people to understand the business that they're in. And all government unions for this matter, because when you understand the business that they're in, everything that they do makes sense. A business needs what to survive? Revenue, right? If you're a business, you're a manufacturer making a product, you need to sell it. Well, government unions, their revenue is union dues. So everything that they do, legislatively, politically, is geared around increasing the revenue to the unions, because that's their business model. That's how these guys, these union officials, stay in business, by getting more dues from their members. So the first thing they want is compulsory dues, obviously, force everyone to finance them in the bargaining units, and higher expenditure so that people, the union members, stay happy with them. And so when you think about trying to tackle that power, you have to come up with ideas that will seek to curb, curtail, or at least level the playing field when it comes to their revenue stream. Because they need money to purchase politicians, right? So one of the things that, the Commonwealth Foundation is talking about this a lot right now, but we've talked about this for a number of years, is the fact that all public sector unions collect their members' dues dollars through payroll deduction. So the typical teacher, the typical county worker, state worker, doesn't actually write a check for their dues every month. They have it deducted. Am I right?
No.
Okay.
Goes away.
Oh, okay. Now, payroll deduction is the payroll department of school districts, counties, and the state is what? It's a publicly owned facility, right? We, the public, own the school district, the payroll department, the payroll people, the HR people who process all of this. They're public employees, and this is public property. Yet we have an amazing situation where every month, every school district and every county and every state will write a check to the government unions and assemblies and say, here's your money, here's your revenue. Government is in the business of being a collection agent for the very government unions that then act against the taxpayers. We are being forced as taxpayers to provide this service for government unions. And I said this to a kindergarten teacher many years ago. I said, I'll call her Mrs. Smith. I said, well, Mrs. Smith, how much are you paying in union dues every year? She goes, oh, I don't know, Simon, it just comes out of my paycheck, right? And I thought to myself, gee, if she had to write a check every month, for her union dues like she does for her electric bill, she'd probably know exactly how much she was spending. She might wonder where half of it goes. Because the reality is with the teachers' union, about 10% of the dues stays with the local union. It's a unified dues structure, so 90% of the dues get shipped up the line to the state union, PSEA, and the national union, the NEA. And so when you have a private organisation, that's what a government union is, it's a private entity, it's not, a public body, that has been empowered to use government as an automatic teller, an automatic collection machine. That's how they get the millions and millions of dollars that they need to oppose all of the reforms, whether we're talking Senate Bill 76 or any of these other initiatives, is because they have the government, the taxpayers, feeding them the money every month. And so there's legislation pending in House Bill, which we support, that would eliminate payroll reduction of union dues and basically tell these unions, hey, listen, you have a right to exist and you have a right to have members join you. Collect your own floating money. It's like any other private organisation. If you're a member of the Birdwatchers Society of Pennsylvania, do you have a right to go to the government and say, government, I'm a member of Birdwatchers, could you just collect money from my paycheck and send it to the Birdwatchers? They'd be like, no. Imagine in the private sector, if you went to your employer and said, I'm a member of Bally's Health Club, could you just collect my Bally's membership dues and send it to them because I can't be bothered? Your employer will look at you like, we're not in the business of collecting for Bally's. Like, you and Bally's can go and work it out. Yet for some reason, we've been brainwashed into thinking that we should be in the business of doing this for unions that are collecting political money. This isn't like, the Red Cross. I mean, they use union dues for political activity. Now, not direct campaign activity, that's for lobbying, the get out the vote drive, all the education initiatives they put out against Senate Bill 76, that's all paid for by, union dues that are collected by the government. But they're also collecting PAC money through payroll deduction. Now that's, the difference legally there is that's hard campaign cash. That's the money that directly influences elections. They have in many government agencies got agreements in place, agreed to by the officials, the school officials, the county, the state, to collect their members' PAC contributions. And guess who's doing this aside from school districts in the county, at the state level? Tom Corbett, our Republican. I'm a Republican, but it's a matter of disclosure. Not that it's relevant necessarily. But Corbett sat down and agreed to renew the provisions that say all these state unions have a right to have their members dues dollars collected through payroll deduction and PAC money collected through payroll deduction. And I have to remember, as much as anything else, does he not get the fact that, all that money is going to be used against him next year and he's agreed to collect it for them? Just as a matter of political analysis, isn't that, really stupid? But, I'm like, why would you agree to that? I'd be like, no, you can collect that on your own. No, I'm not getting that for you. I know that's going to be coming at me. So it's very frustrating, when you have these things that are going on. And if I was government, I would just sat down with the unions and said, you know what? I'm very sorry, but you're going to have to collect your own money from now on. What's the worst thing that could have happened? The law says they have to agree with it. The worst thing that could have happened was the state workers union could have gone on strike. They could have said, well, you won't give us a contract and we're going on strike. Can you imagine in the court of public opinion what that would have done for AFSCME and SEIU if they shut down state government because the governor refused to collect their PAC contributions? They'd be dead in the court of public opinion. The public would go nuts. They'd be like, wait a minute, I never even knew this practice was going on. The governor's right. We shouldn't be using the taxpayers' resources to collect campaign contributions, and now they've walked out on strike over it. They're all wrong. But you see, this is where, I sound frustrated because the governor and other, legislative leaders don't want to have that fight. It's a fight that you can win in the court of public opinion, but you have to have it. You have to be willing to say, I'm standing on one principle, and here's why these people want to shut the government down because they want to cut their PAC money to get Democrats elected. But I don't know what's collecting it for them. If they want to cut their money, give it to them on their own. So I think it is incumbent upon us, through Pennsylvania Union Reform or individually, to start lighting a fire under legislators around these other initiatives, because we can all support our individual pieces of legislation, right? Whether we're talking 76, whether we're talking teacher strikes or anything else. But so much of this stuff, there is institutional opposition to it from the government unions. 76, the teachers union don't want that. Why not? Because they want to control who gets elected onto school boards to keep the gravy train running. As long as they can have local officials tax taxing people's homes locally that they elect, then they're not going to maximize their revenue stream, aren't they? And so this is why I encourage folks to look at the institutional picture when it comes to government unions, and to understand that anything and everything that can be done legislatively, I use the word to curb their political power, but it's really leveling the playing field, because no other private organizations have the right to collect political money using government resources. If you're the Republican committee or the Democrat committee, if you're the NRA or Planned Parenthood, or whatever pack you are, only the government unions have been granted the right to collect PAC money through payroll deduction. They have a special privilege right that needs to be revoked. So I know that I like to do Q&A because there's a lot of stuff in my head that sometimes I forget to talk about when I'm speaking. But one of the things that came out in the news, just while I'm thinking on my feet, talking about pensions. PSBA, the School Boards Association, you familiar with them? Did you know that they're in the public school employee retirement system? What a racket that is. You know, this thing that we have to bail out to the tune of billions of dollars for all our school employees? The School Boards Association, which is the lobbying association for school board directors, theoretically wanting to lobby for, reform around the pension crisis, their own employees are in the system. They're a private organization, literally. They're not public employees even. There's about, 70 or 80 of them. They work in this nice, shiny, building outside of Harrisburg. They invoice all the school districts. That's how they get their money, the School Boards Association. They invoice all the school districts. All the school districts sign up and they pay them, for their lobbying services, the great advocacy that they do. And these people themselves are in the same pension system as the teachers union. The same system that our state legislators are in. And you said, well, how can we have a situation where employees of a private corporation, PSBA, are in a public employee pension system? Because it's a racket. That's why. How most unions say it. They've got some legal opinion from 1939 that says it's okay. Well, it's only okay as long as we the people allow it to be okay. Now we've got Senator Thorner coming out. It seems like there's a bill that would put an end to that. But we need to, have pension reform and new public employers are put into defined contribution plans for their own case. Only then can we get a handle on the future burden. I mean, we're already, in this much harm. Let's not make it even worse. Let's fix the system at least moving forward. But in Harrisburg, they're not even talking about doing that. Because what happens is the government unions go to them after them and say, well, you touch that, we're coming after you next year in the elections with the money that we collected for them. So we encourage everyone, here to get behind the legislation that would eliminate payroll reduction of dues and PAC contributions, because that's, remember I said before, you go after the revenue stream of these institutionalized enemies to reform. That's how you deal with them. You go after the fact that they're allowed to compel people into paying them money. Non-union employees, remember, right to work. These are non-union employees being forced to pay union dues. It was over 20,000 of them at the state level. We had about something like about 80,000 employees working under the jurisdiction of the governor. There's about 20,000 of those 80,000 who are non-union being forced to pay union dues. It's a huge number. Think about that. 20,000 of those people have all said, I don't want to be a union member. For whatever reason. I mean, I take the view, if you want to join, fine, join, pay. If you don't, you don't. No one needs to question you. This is the United States of America. You don't need a reason. You just don't. If you don't belong, you don't belong, you don't pay. Yet 20,000 individuals at the state level who have all decided not to belong are being forced to pay because of state law, because Tom Corbett agreed to it. It's obscene. So we need to pass a right to work law. We need to do PAC deduction payroll. Those two reforms alone would radically revolutionize Pennsylvania for the better, because it would set us free from the stranglehold of the power that government unions have over everyday people, the power to organize against the public. I don't believe, like I said, going back to the strike issue, that we should allow private organizations to have this much power over the public purse strings, because we're all paying the price, whether it's students being kicked out of school, whether it's a lack of school choice, whether it's the pension crisis, whether it's this transportation project that's going to be artificially inflated. We pay the price for the power that public sector unions have, and I encourage everybody to get involved with Pennsylvanians for Union Reform and spread this message around the place, because, very often legislators get away with this stuff because people simply don't know that State Rep Fred, who seems like a nice guy, is actually talking to government unions and doing a lot of really bad things. And so I think what we need to do as citizens is out them and explain and tell people, here's how this guy votes. He took campaign contributions off the teachers union. I mean, I'm very non-partisan about this. I remember, and we're going to do this again, I'll do it as soon as I have a bit of free time, start publishing the campaign contributions of everyone in Harrisburg that takes money off the teachers union. It's staggering. They give money like 75%. They cut across both parties. And I got in trouble one time with a state senator a number of years ago. I won't say who it is. And his chief of staff was like, you told all the newspapers and published in Westmoreland County the names and contributions of everyone that took the teachers union's campaign contributions. And this guy was a Republican. And he's all upset about it. And I'm like, did he take the money? Yes or no? Yeah. It's a public record, right? Yeah. Well, if he's got a problem with this public record being made more public, then tell him to stop taking money from the teachers union. I mean, I'm getting criticized for publicizing public information around campaign contributions, and they're like telling me off like I did something wrong. I'm like, no, you did something wrong. You took the money. So, maybe everybody's been back since that, Senator. Oh, well, whatever. I mean, the point is, though, one has to hold these people that feet to the fire, because how else are we going to get any reforms done and any changes passed? So, I hope you have lots of questions, because there's a lot of stuff in my head that I forget. So, is that okay? Do we do Q&A? Yeah, all right. So please do ask as many questions as you have. Yes, sir. Yeah, do you want to do one of the microphones? I can hear you.
Okay. I find myself agreeing with you and disagreeing with you. Certainly in East Penn, it's a gravy train. You talked about relationship between the teachers union and teachers and what have you. There are a lot of things that I think where we could cut costs in our area. But my son is a teacher in the Philadelphia school district. Okay, they don't have a right to strike there. They haven't had a contract in 3 or 4 years. They currently are being asked to cut their salary by 15%, and they're already lower than the surrounding districts. Okay, and so I thank God for a union in regard to my son's situation. Okay, and they have charter schools in the Philadelphia school district, and it turns out that all those teachers are paid significantly less than the teachers in the public school teachers, and they're worked to death. They burn them up. Okay, in the charter school. So I like unions. I like teacher unions.
Well,
particularly for my son.
Let me just say, I get into debates with people like yourself all the time. I'll be very straight with you. I get into with CBS.
Let me say one more thing.
Right.
I would think, in terms of the charter schools, as teachers get older, they get rid of them. And when you have a union, you protect that. Okay.
All right. Let me. I mean, by the way, one of the things we do at Pennsylvania Uniform is we engage in this dialogue because it has to be had. And sometimes there's just no agreement that it's going to be reached. And then I suspect that what I say next to you might take offense to it. No offense is meant personally. The Philadelphia School District, I did an interview with them a few months ago. In the last 3 years, they've paid out $88 million because of union contracts for unused sick time and personal days. The unions over the years have got these contract clauses where they accumulate banks of days that employees are owed when they retire. And CBS did an investigation on this. $88 million of public money went out of that really bankrupt school district to pay out on the back end of people leaving all these banked days because of union contracts. That's $88 million, that's how I look at it, that is not being put into English, math, education because of those union contracts. And to go back to the point about what you said about yourself, I can appreciate that. Look, I'm a guy. I appreciate what you said.
My son doesn't make that much money.
I understand, but
He's been teaching for 8 years.
I understand, but let me just come back to you this
He
way.
needs a living wage.
Let me just come back to you this way. Public school districts, government, does not exist for the benefit of employing anyone. This is how I look at it. Public school districts exist for one legal reason and one reason only, to educate students. Employment is a byproduct, a necessary byproduct, to fulfill that mission. And what we have with government unions is a mindset that government exists primarily for employment, and therefore we have to do A, B, and C. That's not why government exists. Government exists to provide public services. And with all due respect to anybody in the public sector, if you don't like the terms and conditions of employment, this happens every day in the private sector. If you go to your boss in the private sector and you say, you suck, you don't pay me enough, you know what happens? Your boss says, here are the forces of supply and demand for the position that I currently have for you. This is what I can afford to pay based upon the revenue coming into this business. I'm sorry if you don't like it. There's the door. Everyone in the private sector lives with that reality. Yet, and we cannot have a situation where unions in the public sector are allowed to distort that reality to the detriment of taxpayers and students. So while I can appreciate those who are in the union, they have a self-preservation, a self-interest in it, it is not in the interest of the public to accommodate them. I believe that good teachers, first of all, good teachers suffer under this system as much as anything because the system doesn't allow them to be paid for their talents. I mean, everyone talks about, you hear about this phrase merit-based pay, and sometimes you hear the president talking about it, like, here's what we need to do. That's not something that you need to figure out from Washington, D.C. or Harrisburg. The way to deal with merit-based pay is to get rid of compulsory union representation. They call it collective bargaining. That's not what it is. It's compulsory representation because there's one union that represents all the teachers, one union that represents the support staff. There's no choice between. It's not like you can join and go to Philadelphia School District or any school or East Penn as a teacher and say, you suck. I want to represent myself. I want to negotiate based on my talents. There's compulsory representation. And the way to set our best teachers free is to eliminate the monopoly bargaining power of public sector unions and allow people who wish to do so to negotiate for themselves so that we can start paying people based upon their talents. And people say, well, how would you do that? My attitude on that is, that's not for us to figure out. If an individual, Mrs. Smith, wants to go negotiate with her employer based on her talents, they'll figure it out. So, we need to get rid of the compulsory power of unions. We'll have a good debate on that as we go.
Well, what do you think of that talented person in a charter school? What happens if he says that? Do you think they'll say, oh, I'm going to raise your salary because you're talented? You think they'll do that? In the charter school that's for profit.
Well, look, if you want I don't believe that we should allow any private organization to artificially distort the natural market rate of labor in any setting, and that's what government unions do. So, if people want to join the union and pay because they think it's good, how about it? Don't force people into it, and don't monopolize the services.
But why do you say it's distorting?
Because I'll tell you how.
My son gets a living wage, period.
Let me tell you how it's distorting.
Okay?
Second job.
Get a second job. He works all night. Reading papers. Yes, it does matter.
Sir, let me just say this.
I'm not going to argue. We're just going to
Last question, but let me just say this. The fact that collective bargaining, which I call compulsory union representation, pays everybody the same on the same rate based upon educational credits and years of service. Yet the reality is, within a bargaining unit of 800 teachers, you've got everyone from gym teachers to math teachers to elementary school teachers. The market rate of labor for different positions is going to be different. In most school districts, it is harder to recruit a high school math teacher than it is a first grade elementary school teacher. It just is. Yet the system is geared to say you have to pay them. You have to offer them both the same. And without compulsory union representation, employers could attract and offer different rates to different positions, and unions distort that natural ebb and flow by paying everyone the same. They treat everybody like on a factory bill, and that doesn't serve our children's interests. Go ahead.
If you can hold on, just
Yeah, hi, my name's Rob Hamill, and I ran for the special election for the state rep job. And the platform that I ran on was to put together pension reform in Pennsylvania, because, for instance, right now in the East Penn School District, we're paying 50% above salaries for the benefits, which is, mainly the pensions. What do you see the best way of tackling this pension business is, and, would a bankruptcy of the state be a viable alternative to get out of the pension so that we don't go into the death spiral that you're seeing Detroit and Chicago go, and many other cities go into?
Well, certainly I think that the solution has to come from Harrisburg, because school districts, as you know, it's just a mandate. You get told every year by law you have to pay in so much, and that rate is going to set to explode in future years. So anything that has to happen has to come out of Harrisburg. What should happen? They should fix it. At a minimum, they should cap the current liability, cut it off, and put new employees into a defined contribution plan. So it wouldn't get rid of the debt that is currently owed, but at least it would turn the valve off and say from this point on, anyone coming in gets a defined contribution plan. These pensions, these guaranteed pensions, are unsustainable and unaffordable, and they really, like you said, they risk bankrupting. So we're going to see school districts going under. We're going to see some municipalities going under because of this pension debt. You can't just ignore it. But of course, our legislators in Harrisburg, they're all in it. They're all in the same system. You've got the PSPA in it. What has to happen is people have to get up in arms about it. They're under so much pressure from the public sector unions not to do anything with it. And this is why it just gets, a few years ago they re-amortized it and kicked the can down the road, and that just adds to even more debt that we have to pay back over time. But at a bare bones minimum, they need to shut this thing down right now and say from this point on, new employees, you get the defined contribution, which, like a 401k. The employer puts in a fixed amount, the employee matches it, and then the investment returns are what they are. This is how it all works for the rest of us. We shouldn't be on the hook when our pensions are going down in the markets to then bail out public employee pensions just because they've been given a promise politically. So what has to happen is they have to seriously deal with this in Harrisburg, but they're not going to deal with this or right to work or any of these other reforms until we, the citizenry, get up in arms about the fact that half these guys get elected by public sector unions and are pandering to them instead of doing the right thing. Yes, sir.
Basically, most of that money that went to Harrisburg was invested in stock market, and they lost, and that's what happened to the money.
Well, you had two, since 2001, you had two significant serious recessions. All pension funds were swimming in money because of those two recessions. The difference is, with a defined benefit plan, the public employers get bailed out in a defined contribution plan. The rest of us, we're just stuck with it. So what we're talking about here is saying government employees should not be treated as some sort of privileged class of people compared to the taxpayers that have to fund these things. They should be in a defined benefit plan like the rest of us. We shouldn't be saying, if you work for the government, you get special privileged benefits. No, you should get the same benefit everyone else gets.
I'll add just one thing. I know of one person, a friend of mine, that said that his wife is a school teacher in another district. They moved here, but she's stuck there because she has so many years teaching that to make a move here, she'd have to get paid so much money, and it's easier to hire a new teacher to take that position than to have her come down. She's got experience, all this kind of stuff that could come to this district, but she basically can't because she's priced out of this market. So it traps even the school teacher into wherever they are. It's tough for them to move around physically.
Yes, because they can't automatically transfer where they're at to the new place. That's true. I think there's a threshold, like it's 7 years or something. It works out that a teacher would actually be worse off moving, so they end up sticking around. One district, you see careers, 20, 30 years typically in the same district, which I don't think is good either. I mean, we need a much more flexible labor market when it comes to public employment, in all regards, so that employees, are free to move around and contract their talents, and get paid for it. And of course, the unions get in the way of that. That's all they do. They just want the conveyor belt, the factory line, churning through the dollars.
Do you have any insight into why this bill, the legislators for the transportation bill, voted down the passage of this bill? I mean, there was like an extraordinarily large amount of money that was going to go, which I assume would feed unions. So I'm wondering why there must have been something in there, a poison pill or some reason that they did not pass it?
Well, the Senate passed it and the House didn't, as I understand it. I think there was enough people in the House that felt that it was going to be essentially a tax on gas. There was enough of a quote-unquote conservative pushback against how some of the stuff with the funding of CEPTA.
That would have upset the taxpayers.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there was enough of a taxpayer pushback through voices in the House that mixed it in the House. But again, something like this, the transportation issue, the infrastructure issue, transportation, it just highlights the need to eliminate prevailing wage. $2.5 billion is a lot of money. And if it's 20% extra, why are we talking about doing that? Why is Corbett and the others just assuming, well, we get the whole point, we don't want the roads and the bridges falling down. I think everyone agrees on that. But why isn't he out there leading the charge? Come on, we're going to appeal prevailing wage as part of this deal. Get it done now. And here's how much money it will cost extra if it isn't done. There's no leadership coming out of Harrisburg on this issue. It's the same thing when he was negotiating those contracts. Why wasn't he leading the charge? I won't collect the PAC money. I won't sign a contract until that's gotten lost. We don't have leadership in the governor's mansion.
Question over here then.
Yes, ma'am.
Close again.
Well, with our President Obama, the way he shut down the different mining operations and jobs, how are people going to pay for these, for our kids to actually go to school? With no work, we're shutting down all of our industries, the mining, everything, gas. So, there has to be money to put into the we have to make money in order to pay taxes, I'm afraid.
Right, to do that we need jobs. You pass it right to work in Pennsylvania, the job will flow here. Absolutely flow here. No question about it.
Does that have anything to do with the unions?
Right to work is the number one thing, yeah. It is the number one thing. It says that nobody should be forced to pay a union, belong or join or pay a union as a condition of employment. It's a freedom of choice issue. And study after study shows that businesses and companies want to go set up shop in right-to-work states. And we're not a right-to-work state. And neither are the surrounding states, which would mean if we became one, we'd be even more of that light on the hill for businesses. In order to pay taxes and get an economy moving, you need jobs. And right-to-work is an absolute job winner, and it wouldn't cost a nickel to pass. But the unions don't want it because it would impact their political, personal power.
Simon, can you explain that a little bit more as far as the difference in monies and why and how that would work? They earn more money than the other, but it's forced.
How the dues break down, you mean?
No, just as far as the right to work is, the union just gets more money.
Yes.
The state is forced to use.
Okay, so here's how it works. There's certain constitutional principles involved. You can't be forced anywhere in the United States to join a union as a member of the union, okay? That's unconstitutional. However, if you don't join the union, so I'm talking about non-union people, right? But you work in a place that is unionized, then you're required to pay what's called a fair share fee, which is about 70-80% of the union dues. And the unions argue, well, you know, we represent these people, they benefit from all the collective bargaining, so they owe us their fair share of the cost of that. That's their argument. Except for the fact that, you know, the union has a monopoly compulsory representation over that person. So that the union says, if you don't pay us money, then these people will be free riders. They're not free riders, they're captive passengers, because they don't have a choice about who represents them. So in the right to work state, what it would say is, if you choose not to join the union, you would still be in that unionized workplace. Unions still exist. But if you choose not to join as a member, you don't owe them any money. You don't owe them a nickel, which is the only just and fair way of doing it, because if a person has made the decision, the personal decision, that they don't want to join a union, for whatever reason, it's a free country, right? Don't have to explain yourself. You shouldn't force that person to finance a union when they're not a union member. So right to work would make those compulsory dues illegal. So right to work states, unions exist. However, what they have to do to the non-member is they have to say, you know, John, here's all the good things that we do. We do this great stuff. We work for you. Would you mind joining and paying your $500, your $600 a year? They have to attract the support of workers instead of being able to compel it. And in a compulsory union state like Pennsylvania, the union officials, they don't have to attract the support of anyone. They just say, if you don't want to join us, forget about it. We get $400 out of your paycheck whether you like it or not. So you have compulsory union dues requirements of non-union employees in states like Pennsylvania. And when you liberate those employees so that they can choose where their money goes, that's what right to work is. It says if you don't belong to the union, you don't pay any union dues. So unions in right to work states exist, but they tend to be more honest, they're less prone to corruption, because the union officials have to attract the support of workers, not compel it. And that was shown statistically to have an effect on where businesses want to go for employment. Because they want to, you know, businesses in right to work states still deal with unions, but the relationships are okay. You know, but it's not this combative, like, situation all the time, because they know that if the workers are unhappy, they can leave the union and take their money with them. So right to work benefits the individual employee because it gives them freedom of choice. Everybody in the Philadelphia School District is, there are, good point, in the Philadelphia School District, I think there's about 14,000 employees. 3,000 of them are not union members in the Philadelphia School District. All of those 3,000 people made a personal decision that the union doesn't benefit them. Unlike this gentleman's son. And this gentleman's son is allowed to think the union benefits them, and God bless them, he should join and pay dues. But 3,000 people said no. Why should we have a law that says to those 3,000 who disagree, we will force you to finance the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers? That's wrong. A right to work would say those 3,000 people don't owe a nickel. And so right to work frees the employee to choose, and by default almost, is where businesses want to go. Jobs go to right to work states. And enacting a right to work law is as simple as saying, if you're not a union member, you don't pay any dues. It will open the floodgates to jobs and free our employees.
Isn't that called a company union?
Sorry?
Isn't that called a company union?
A company union? In the public sector, there's no company, it's just us.
In other words, what I'm trying to say is, it wouldn't be represented by a regular union, it would be dealt with mostly by the company.
You've lost me.
In other words, when you deal with a union, like you're saying, you have people that work with the company, and the company dictates what you're going to get.
Well, no, let's understand. Right to work doesn't eliminate compulsory union representation, collective bargaining, monopoly bargaining, whatever you want to call it. So anybody in a unionized workplace is still represented by the union.
Okay.
Whether you want, we believe we should go to the next step and get rid of compulsory union representation. The unions call it collective bargaining, which sounds nice, except that it's wrong union. You know, you go to East Penn School District, the teacher doesn't say, I like that union, not that. I don't have a choice. One union, they call it collective bargaining, we call it compulsory representation. You can play with the words whatever you want. But to your point, right to work doesn't get rid of the compulsory monopoly nature of the union. A non-union employee would still be represented by the union as part of the bargaining unit. They just wouldn't pay any dues. They just wouldn't pay any dues because they're not union members. So the union would have to go in and say, look, please join. You know, we usually are nice people. We do great things. Come to the union hall and give us your 400. Whereas now in Pennsylvania, just say, we'll get your money anyway. You know? And that's what right to work is. It doesn't eliminate union representation in the workplace. It eliminates the compulsory dues payments.
I'd like to sort of observe in the right-to-work states that you ask yourself, where are the new major plants? There was a big stink out in Washington State because Boeing built the new plant in South Carolina. You'll also notice that Toyota and Honda have their plants in Kentucky, Mercedes-Benz and BMW are down in Alabama. I said, these are all right-to-work states. And none of them are going to move to New York or Detroit or Pennsylvania because of the right to work.
They might move to Detroit now. Michigan just passed the right to work law a few months ago.
They're a little late, but God bless them.
Well, people said that could never happen. A big union state with all the auto companies there. And this is the other thing. If you know, Detroit can pass the right to work law, and that governor was not saying he would sign it, then why can't we do it in Pennsylvania? We can't do it because we don't have the legislative backbone to take on these unions.
I have one other main thing, and that is that in Pennsylvania we have the right to be secure in our homes according to the state constitution. All these people who are having their homes taken by the school district for failure to pay their taxes, would it be possible to organize a great legal movement to refuse to pay the taxes and then keep the school districts from taking anybody's house other than to put a lien on it?
I don't know, maybe we're coming to that the way things are going.
Well, after a while we're going to hire somebody.
I got one too, as far as, might piggyback on everything, prevailing wage costs tied in with union work.
Yeah,
contracts.
in my school district, in Bucks County, I asked the business manager how much has that cost us. He estimated over 10 years that we've spent about $10 million in needless additional labor costs over 10 years because of the prevailing wage mandate. That's just offensive, you know, because school districts have to do with budgets and provide educational programs for students. They have to try to be responsible for taxpayers, and it's just throwing money out the door when you're paying above market rate for labor on public construction. It's obscene. And the other thing that it does is it criminalizes employers. You know, if you're an employer in the construction business and you put 1 foot wrong on the paperwork with prevailing wage, you have the government knocking on your door threatening to shut you down because you broke the law. They'll go over your books and everything. We shouldn't be criminalizing employers in the private sector. And we shouldn't be forcing the public to pay anything above the market rate for labor.
In Wisconsin, when they made all of their changes, the governor, and of course he got involved with what was happening with the teachers' unions, one of the things that the teachers' unions out there were doing is they were handling all of their insurances. And with them handling all their insurances, there was a little bit of graft and extra money that was involved in monies required by the unions. He cleared that up, and of course, he cut down some of their costs so that they could pay for some of their pensions. Is there any kind of involvement like that here in Pennsylvania?
Not yet, but there needs to be. And one thing about insurance, and many teachers, God bless them, they don't necessarily know much about the union and what they actually do. But the number one recruiting tool that the teachers union uses with teachers, and they get them young, they get them in college on this, is they say, you need to sign up with us and become a member because you need our liability insurance and our protection from lawsuits. In today's lawsuit-hungry world, parents will sue you if you put a foot wrong, and you could be a terrible risk sign up with us as a member and we give you this insurance. It's a crock. It's a scam. You want to know why? School districts already provide insurance for their own employees. The school district insures everybody. If a teacher puts a foot wrong and does something, the school district is usually the entity that gets sued because the person who filed the lawsuit sees the school district as the money. But even if they know the employee, the district's insurance would cover that employee. And yet the teachers' union doesn't exactly tell teachers this. So they sign them up under it. I know my teachers say, oh, I don't really like the union and the political stuff they don't want, but I need them for the insurance. And I'm like, what? Who told you that? And you know this insurance that they get, the MEA purchases it, right? Because if you're at the teachers' union, you want to get a good grade, right? So they purchase it nationally, the insurance for teachers, the insurance that they don't need. They get a good rate. I worked it out as I looked through some of their financial documents. It costs on average about $2 or $3 a year for the teachers' union to buy this insurance policy. Then they turn around, like in my school districts, and say, well, yeah, you need to become a union member for $900 a year. And the teachers are doing it because they think they need insurance. It costs $3. In any other area of life, that would be called racketeering. Yet we somehow, the teachers union gets away with this stuff. Because teachers don't, a lot of them are really nice people, great, but they don't necessarily know what the union are doing. Half of them don't even know what they're paying in dues because it just comes straight out of paycheck every month. Let alone thinking about, well, do I really need this insurance? We had a situation in my school district where the union were getting PAC money, the campaign contributions out of paychecks, and a lot of teachers didn't even realize it. Because they signed some form, 10 years ago, and when the HR department made them read all the signature authorization forms, it's 80% of teachers stopped paying the PAC money when they actually realized, well, I didn't know I was paying the PAC money. The teachers union, when they sign people up to become a member, they have a form. On the left-hand side it says, sign here to have your union dues deducted, and there's a little pledge, sign here for the PAC money, the campaign contributions, and in fine print it says this pledge is good forever. So they get a PAC money from the paycheck, and unless the teacher's diligent, they probably signed some form 10 years ago, didn't realize what it was, and they got PAC money coming out to influence elections. And that's why this bill that would eliminate payroll reduction of dues and PAC is so important. If a teacher or anyone wants to contribute to a PAC, it's a free country. Let them do it. Let them write the check directly. Stop collecting it. So I get myself wound up.
No.
Okay, I want to look at this from a teacher's point of view.
Yes.
Are you saying that, say, even in the East Penn School District, I would have a choice to belong to the union or not belong to the union?
You already have that choice. Theoretically, there's something called maintenance of membership. I don't want to bore you with legal speak. Let's just leave maintenance of membership out of it for a minute. You already have the choice to join or not join. If you choose not to join, the union will come along and say, you have to pay us about 80% of the full member dues to not be a member. Because, you see, we still represent you and we benefit you. We, the union, have decided we benefit you. You're not allowed to decide that for yourself. This is a compulsory unionist state. That's their argument. Their argument is if you drop out, then we still benefit you. We get you your contract. We represent you. You're not allowed to be a free rider. Pay your fair share.
Okay, we'll say then you pay your fair share.
Compulsory union dues, please. I don't speak English.
Okay, but you've chosen not to be a member of the union.
Right.
So what if an issue comes up and you're named in the issue?
Like a grievance procedure?
Yeah.
Okay, the law states that one of the things about the law is, this goes back to the monopoly argument, the union has to represent members and non-members equally and alike without discrimination. If they don't represent a non-member the same as a member, that non-member could sue the union for a breach of fair representation. In other words, when you pay your so-called fair share, You're paying for their services. If they don't provide them, you can sue them. Now, that's how the law works. The reality of the situation is you only have a limited number of non-union employees, the ones paying the fair share, and they all get looked at the wrong way in the teacher's lounge, right? And when there is a grievance procedure or something that's needed, the law says that you didn't have to provide it, but you know, it's funny how John is busy over here when that's needed. You know how it goes in the real world.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, there's the law and then there's the real world. And what we're saying with right to work is, if that person opts out the union, they won't pay the compulsory dues fair share. They won't pay anything. The union should have to say to that person, what we do is so great, we were asking for your money instead of compelling it. Once you empower any organization to compel the payment of dues, all accountability goes out the window. You know, we don't compel people to finance organizations that they're not members of in the United States of America. This is, I mean, look, I took the citizenship test. Who said give me liberty or give me death? Patrick Henry. The founding ideas of this country were built on the idea of individual freedom, individual liberty. And to say to someone, we're forcing you to pay dues, you're not a member, up yours, we're taking money out of your paycheck, that's un-American.
Do you see more expenses coming along for all the school districts with the implementation of Common Core?
Probably, because I'm sure all these mandates aren't going to be free to comply with. Yes, well that's another thing that, you know, King Obama got taken care of without congressional approval. You know, I know that they're still arguing about the implementation of that in Harrisburg. It remains to be seen what's going to come out of that. But, you know, that's a whole other kind of worms, quite frankly. You know, there's a theme underlying what I'm saying, with all these issues, which is that the rights of, I firmly believe in local control, first of all. Government works best when it is closest to the people. All these mandates that come down from above, whether it's Harrisburg passing them down or deep Washington, D.C., you know, they're typically very expensive. They just add to the cost. It doesn't actually do anything to improve anyone's education, but it makes a bunch of bureaucrats feel better about themselves. And I just think we should get down here, like merit-based pay. Instead of like having a plan from DC or a plan from Harrisburg, how should we do this? Just eliminate compulsory union representation. And then Sally Smith, fell at them. If they don't want to, they can still join the union, but if they want to say, no, I'm a good physics teacher, I'm just going to go talk to that school on my own, I don't need you. We don't need government getting in the way of that back and forth. There might be different economic, different demographics that pertain to John Adam and the physics teacher and Sally Smith in a different district. Let them work it out. Once we get rid of compulsory monopoly unions, we can empower individuals to negotiate contracts with those who wish to, empower them to move around and contract and use their services. This is how the private sector works. This is how we thrive. Yet the government sector is the most spectacularly inefficient system because of public sector unions. Oh no. Go ahead.
Tom, just a minute. So you have one over here and I'll get you the mic then.
Okay.
We just had a school board election in East Bend.
We just had a school board election in East Bend, and I asked the current vice president of the board, why are you still, or will you support not taking union dues out of paychecks? Will you stop doing that? He said, well, no, I won't, because it would be a bad precedent, and we're trying to be friendly with the teachers. And I didn't know, how to...
These are elected officials supposed to represent the taxpayers of the students worried about upsetting a private organization's collection of political money. Isn't it great?
How do you argue that?
Just some of the knucklehead, I'm going to tell everyone about it. Why do we have school districts? Do we have school districts so we can say, hey, private organization, we're going to collect all your money so we can buy politicians and influence elections. That's why we have a school district, isn't it? It's not so kids can learn English and math and develop their minds. No, it's to allow you all to purchase politicians. So, Well, you don't have to say, well, vote for us, and we're 76 when we're getting pulled into the side room and told not to do it by the teachers union. I mean, that's, you know. You put it up here, oh, no. I thought Arthur came off the door in the house, the union role. Oh, here we go, come on.
That thing about Sally Smith negotiating,
Yes.
I don't think that's true. And good examples of that are charter schools.
I'm saying let's have it be true, let them choose.
Well, no, they exist. For-profit charter schools exist.
Okay.
And salaries are uniformly low, and I'm sure they have some really good teachers, but they're not paid well.
Well, guess what?
Why?
The parents that send their kids to those schools have a choice to do it or not do it, correct?
That's right.
Right. So the parent is happy with the school, why do you interfere with that decision?
Because you just used the example of Sally Smith.
But if the parent is
She's
happy...
able to get a good salary.
But if Sally Smith...
Hold on a second. By going to the principal or the school and say, hey, I'm a really good teacher, give me a lot of money. That is bullshit.
Well, I disagree with the premise that you're seeking to impose, which is to impose on others what they should do. If Sally Smith wants the contract at price A or price B, that's her choice. Let's say Sally Smith just wants to do it as a second job. Let's say her husband is a primary earner, and she's happy to contract me at this price, which your son might not be. Why are we allowed to say to the son, you can't contract at that price? Let her. That's the thing. You should not be in a position of dictating to individuals what they contract their services for. But I guarantee you, if you eliminate compulsory unions, there will be physics teachers and math teachers that will make more money.
I agree with that.
I just wanted to echo what you just said there. I don't know if this is going to turn into a question or maybe you'll elaborate on it, but it seems to me one of the things that's really hurting our country is people have lost faith in the free market, and they don't understand the way the market dictates not only prices that things sell for, but also the salaries. And there's an element of that market that is the individual. And one of the examples I'll use is McDonald's. People saying, oh, well, you have to pay people a living wage. But there are people that are content with a wage. And somehow people lose sight of the fact that if people are willing to work for a wage, you should not be allowed to dictate whether that is a fair wage or not. The wage is what the person is willing to accept to do the job. If you force a wage, you distort the whole market principles, and the whole market then shifts and goes out of balance. That's, I think, one of the things that we need to understand is at the charter school, for example, the people that are working at the charter school are working there because they find that to be an acceptable wage.
And one other thing, because then they choose to contract at that price, that charter school exists because there are parents who wanted that choice to put their kids there. And if they're not happy with that education at that charter school, those parents have the right in law to pull their kids out. If they think that Sally Smith is a horrible teacher and all this activity does is pay for bad teachers, they'll be gone. The charter school won't exist. So you're right in the sense that the principle of the market that should determine the rate of labour and what people's choices are. And the left, I'm not picking on you, sir, but I've really going to use this expression, that's not fair. You know what I teach my kids on this? I have a 11-year-old. A few years ago, she goes, Dad, that's not fair. You know what I told her? I said, life's not fair. So suck it up and get used to it. The more you get your head around that idea, the more successful you'll be at it. I don't believe in this idea of imposing fairness on society. There's no such thing. Sorry, I'm running myself up here.
And I just wanted to comment one more thing about the charter school. A charter school isn't a good example, though, of making the free market argument, because the competition aspect is skewed because they're competing with a public entity. So if you really want to look at free market, you have to look at a system that is completely free. So you'd have to look at private sector and see how people move from job to job. It's a little harder for a teacher to move
from a charter school to a charter school when they're competing with a big public entity, so.
Well, the other thing with charter schools is they have to get approved by the school district. The school district, the government entity, has to approve losing money for it to set itself up. So, it isn't the best example of the free market. I mean, if you want to talk, you want to compare like the quality of teachers, I would say, go look at the quality of teachers, say, in Catholic schools, how much they're making, and then tell me that they're not as good teachers. There's a lot of teachers that get involved in this because they love the work. And it's not just about what they can get out of it. I'm not saying so that your son is doing it.
My son is a Catholic. My wife is a Catholic.
There you go. So you know that she makes less, right? But she makes less, and she's probably a good teacher and educated. So you can see why I don't believe in teachers unions or in any government unions. I don't believe that we should allow everybody to organize against the public. And this goes back to, Franklin Roosevelt said this many years ago. Not exactly a Republican guy here who was saying he saw a huge problem with allowing the public sector to unionize for all of these reasons.
I think that's a basic problem right there. Simon, to support what you're saying, in the last 10 years, 117,000 taxpayers of Pennsylvania went to right-to-work states. 117,000. Now, what does that do for the economy of this state?
Well, it's the same thing. We're losing jobs, like we're losing population.
You're right.
We're losing, a number of congressional seats because our population is declining. Students, go to university here, then they go somewhere else to get a job. And Boeing is a great, high-profile example. Moving to South Carolina, right to work state. Well, of course. Why wouldn't they? That's where the jobs go. The unions fight this tooth and nail. But I'm telling you, right to work would be the single most spectacular thing, particularly for Pennsylvania, given its geographic location in the Northeast. I mean, it was huge when Michigan went right to work. Huge. But we're in the Northeast corridor. We're in a fantastic location. If we were right to work in Jersey, still compulsory union, and Ohio, and New York, oh my Lord, could you imagine?
It would change the economy totally around.
What revolutionary? Yeah, businesses falling. Look at Pennsylvania. Are you kidding me? What a great place.
And to confirm what you're saying, if you look at the taxation of all states in the United States, the top 10 tax states are union-controlled states.
Of course.
They've got the biggest increase in poverty. And actually, the wages are falling. There's a lot of the right-to-work states down south are now making more money than the union states up here, union people up here.
Right to work is a proven winner. The unions oppose it because it impedes their power and their money. Remember what I said at the beginning, that they're in the business of revenue, and when they can no longer force people to pay them, their revenue declines and their political power declines. And these union bosses are in the business of lining their own pockets and influencing politicians. I would even argue that a lot of these unions, particularly the public sector unions, they're in their own self-interest. That's the business that they're in. Am I right on the nail at 9 o'clock?
Another question.
Yes.
Public unions, private unions, one can go broke, one can't.
Yes, I really maintain, I get accused of being anti-union all the time, and if you actually listen to a lot of things that we say at Pennsylvania's union reform, it's not so much as being anti-union. I'm anti-union to the extent that I oppose any union who forces itself onto someone. A right-to-work state, I'm fine with those unions. They exist because they don't have compulsion and coercion. But there is a difference between the private and the public sector. In the private sector, when you get back to the strike issue, teachers go on strike in Pennsylvania, the law guarantees students 180 academic days, so they get to make the days up. So teachers can hit the picket lines, right? Disrupt the educational program, yet still make the days up, and therefore still get paid 100% of salary for the year. Contrast that to the private sector, in the auto industry, or whatever industry it is. If that union is contemplating going on strike for more benefits, they have to sit down, that union member, with their spouse, their partner, and figure out whether the strike is financially worth it to them. They're going to lose money, they're not going to get paid, they're not going to make it back. And that's an economic consideration that doesn't exist, certainly with the teachers' union and strikes. But of course, unions in the private sector have to be somewhat mindful that if their demands are so high that it imposes too much of a burden on their employer, they could shed jobs and potentially put their company out of business and have no jobs. The public sector, they want more money from that employer, what do? Shake the money tree. You guys, the taxpayers, are a never-ending source of funds to feed the demands of public sector unions. So there is a difference between public and private, and certainly we see this at Pennsylvania Union Reform. There's a lot of private sector union members that are like, look, I support unions in the industrial sector, the construction industry, others, but I agree with you on government unions. And I think our focus is on the government unions, because they're the most powerful entities anyway. With the private sector, they're kind of declining on their own.
I think we got it lined up. Anybody else want more questions? Keep them going. Do you want to talk about your...
Yeah, just to finish up, you can go to facebook.com/PA Union Reform and hopefully sign up and get others to sign up. We have an email sign-up button on one of the tabs. We published all of the public school employees' names and salaries on another tab if you want to go looking up everyone there. That makes them crazy. We're going to be putting more information on there moving forward. You can see some of the chit-chat going on. And we're focused on social media because it is, we can get video up, we can share it, and people can spread the word. It is somewhat the future, as my kids like to tell me. So, we post that every day, there are updates every day. I would encourage you to go there and sign up, get on our email list, spread the word. And we put out updates, get in touch with your legislators, that kind of a thing. So it's a networking grassroots thing, and we hope you sign up.
Thank
you very much.
If anybody didn't sign up, if you want to over here, put your email address or anything down. We'll send a link for his site. Do you have a regular Facebook, or can I? Okay, I'll put it on, I'll do a little write-up and then send that out to everybody. You can just click on it and read our little write-up and go right to his site and check it out some more. Again, thank you, Simon, very much. This has been great. Goodies in the back and everything. If you want to partake here, I don't know if Simon's sticking around for a little bit. Rich, maybe, if he wants to stick around for a little bit, can ask some questions. Well done, mate. Thanks.